right, guys, it's 2022, August. Coach Grice, I got you right here. You know what time it is. It's high school football season. I'm the guru, Chris Hughes. You're watching the first episode of the 2022 season, Talking Preps Overtime. Coach Grice, it's been a long time since I've seen you. How you doing?
Been great, Coach. I mean, I think, one of the big things is that, we're back. I mean, every year we think about, you get through the season as a coach, now as a contributor here on Talking Preps, and you're just like, man, get a lot of time to rest. And I feel like the off season is shorter and shorter, and we get back on here immediately and we're ready to go. And I tell you what, Guru, I'm going to say it here. You'll probably hear me say it later. This is going to be one of the most exciting seasons we've ever had in high school sports. I'm saying it right now.
Well, we're going to kick off this season for the Talking Preps Overtime with the reigning state champions, the head football coach of Cardinal Gibbons, the winners of the 4A state championship a year ago. We've got him on here, Coach Steven Wright. Coach Wright, we're just going to get off fast and furious. I got the coach right here, Coach Grice. He's probably ready to grill you with some tough questions. But first and foremost, thanks for joining us here this evening.
Oh, no. Hey, listen, happy to be with you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
I mean, we got the reigning. We're starting off, Guru. We are starting off with a state champion coach here. I mean, we're not pulling any punches. We're not holding anything, back here in 2022. But, Coach, before we go into the future and talk about your upcoming season, can you give the viewers kind of a glimpse into your past? How did you get into this point of being a state championship coach?
Well, I tell you, it's been a pretty wild ride. I got at Cardinal Gibbons in 2011, and we were a 3A program. We had 80 kids in our program at that time, and it's been really kind of a long, slow build for us. We've managed to surround myself with a great staff. We've got some exceptional families, a supportive administration, and when you've got those ingredients, you've got some stability, you can build a program, and we've had the privilege of doing that, and we transitioned into 4A. And have now made our way into 3 state championship games the past 3 seasons, and finally punched through and won one last year.
Yeah. You go, girl.
And I was going to bring up those state championship runner-up finishes. You had back-to-back seasons where you guys were right on that precipice. I played some really tough championship games, and then obviously to get to the point this past season where you just had a phenomenal state championship game against Chambers High School. What has it been that's allowed you guys not only to consistently stay at that top level, but finally to reach that mountaintop? And now I know hopefully within your program standards and what you guys are trying to do, just continue that progress and to do it year in and year out.
Well, I think one, and I mean this, part of it's the grace of God. You've got to stay healthy. And I've got to give credit where credit's due. And the Lord has really blessed us, not only practically with the supportive administration, a great staff of coaches and hardworking kids, but we've been able to stay healthy. And as you guys know, that's such a big part of high school football, really football in general, but certainly at the high school level, where, a lot of times you're one deep in most positions. Sometimes you're fortunate to be too deep, but that's not always the case. And so, I think that is one big thing. And then I think too, winning's a habit, and it's something that you've got to learn how to do. And that not only comes with hard work, but that comes with, a group of kids that are learning how to win. And then once they learn how to win, you've got to continue to feed that. And we've been able to do that. And I think part of that is, maintaining a strong staff. And, our coaching staff is, in my opinion, one of the best in the state. And I've been able to keep those guys together. There's a number of them that could go right now and be head coaches somewhere, but they've wanted to stay with us and continue to push this thing forward.
I'll get right into that, Coach. I feel like your DC, Nick Drew, has become like a darling of the Talking Prep staff, with our contributor, Alex Bass, of course, always bringing his name up. I mean, he's, again, we hear on the collegiate level all the time about hot coordinators and guys that are next up. I mean, he fits right into that mold, even, hearing some of the scuttlebutt around with his name potentially being involved in other job openings. Can you talk about him and even one of the great jobs he did, especially with that state championship game, he, along with the elements holding that vaunted Chambers offense really into, the inability to do anything all day?
Yeah, he is a hardworking, bright young mind in our profession. and he has got a very bright future. And we're excited, obviously, to have him on staff and to keep him as long as we can. But, God's got something in store for him, and I can't wait to see what it is. I just don't want him to take off quite yet. But he will have a number of opportunities in front of him. And I could say the same thing for our offensive coordinator, Bill Leedy. Yeah. Both those guys have just done a phenomenal job in our program. Bill's been with me since I got there at Cardinal Gibbons, started out as my O-line coach, and then transitioned into becoming the offensive coordinator. And then Nick joined us 6 years ago as a defensive back coach, and then took over the whole defense just a year later at the ripe old age of 22, and has just done a phenomenal job. So we wouldn't be where we are without those two. I can tell you that.
Oh, I agree 100%. Talk to him online, of course, with your OC leading. I mean, he's a great guy, and I definitely agree with you there. When you have two great coordinators as a head coach, I think it helps make your job a little easier. But we got to get into it. We always have within the state, I feel like, the 704 versus the 919 rivalry. Before Coach Lucas seemed to kind of hold that banner with three straight titles and being that guy. Now it seems like your team and you personally are the focus. I mean, we've got the great quote about walking across the street to the state championship game. And I feel like it's really built into a big rivalry, of course, with game one within the 704, within the area. How do you feel about being the face of that 919 in the big rivalry? And do you guys talk about that on your side?
We don't talk about it much, but I can tell you this. Yes, Wake Forest, carried that banner for a long time. Reggie Lucas is a phenomenal head coach and has just done a tremendous job with their program over the years and continues to. We just happen to be the ones that snagged the title this past year. But the reality is, I think there's a lot of great football in both the 704 and the 919. And what I love about, the opportunity to play Chambers early is it's good on good, right? I mean, you're getting an opportunity to really test yourself early against a high quality opponent. And, we've kind of taken that really over the past probably 4 or 5 years. We've adjusted our philosophy and said, listen, let's see if we can't go find the best teams we can in the non-conference so that we can find out what we need to fix before the postseason arrives. And so, that's what we're in the midst of doing. I think Chambers has that same philosophy. Let's go find somebody good. Let's go play, and let's see what we've actually got. Because as you guys well know, you got a different team every year. And, our team last year isn't showing up this year. Those seniors graduated. I got a group of sophomores that came in as juniors and a freshman that's coming in maybe to help us out on the varsity. But the reality is you've got a different team every year. And I'm excited to see what we've got, and I think getting that early test against Chambers is going to tell us a lot.
I agree, and I'm excited. Again, I'll give you and the viewers a secret. This is probably going to be my Grice is Right game of the week. I'll take the probably out. It's going to be one of the games, and I'll have to add another one just to be fair to everybody. But I think one of the biggest aspects that I'm looking at early is that clearly in both games, as we saw, weather was a key component. I mean, you look at the first game, and I would argue that that allowed you kind of to get back in the game. And then once the rain started, I think you guys had positioned yourself, in that state championship game to be in a position where, hey, we're up early, we took our shot early. Now let's hang on and kind of let this thing go, however it will. Is weather kind of a thing that you guys are putting into play here? We know that, it's the summertime, it's late summer, thunderstorms are going to be a factor. Is staying ready for the long haul one of the items that you guys are taking to prepare for week one?
Well, I think let's keep this real, right? We're playing on the same field, we're playing in the same weather, and we're dealing with the same circumstances. So, and I think what you saw in week one, you saw, in a sense, a repeat in week two. You saw two great teams playing each other and leaving everything on the field. And we just happened to end up on top in the last week of the year, whereas Chambers got us in week one this past season. So, weather, field conditions, are they a factor? Sure, they're a factor, but they're a factor for both teams, and both teams have got to deal with it. I think maybe the question becomes, how does each team deal with it? And, maybe there is a degree of, maybe we handled it a little bit better. Maybe they handled it a little bit better than us in week 1, and maybe we handled it a little bit better than them in week 16. But the reality is we're still playing on the same field, dealing with the same conditions. And I think Chambers would tell you the exact same thing. It was so funny to hear, people talking after week 1. Oh, well, the only reason Cardinal Gibbons came back was because there was a 4-hour delay. Well, listen, we sat in our gym. They sat in the other gym. They didn't get any food. Guess what? We didn't get any food. We were all dealing with the same stuff. And so, but the reality is 2 great teams played each other, and both games were a dogfight, and they got us in week 1. We just happened to get them in week 16.
Yeah, Coach, that's always a funny thing. I mean, the rumors were crazier in the 704 and Feather rivalry. It said you guys were getting hoagies and Doritos over there while Chambers was suffering on water and snacks. I don't know, Coach, but I think stories like that feed that rivalry. Now, taking it back into the 919. I mean, I know that you guys are the state champs. I mean, I know even you look in the 704, you have those situations where a team like Chambers always kind of has that target on their back. In the same thing, you guys having Leesville Road there, getting some guys back too. They're going to be a tough and formidable opponent. And that game was one of the games that I think gets a guy like Guru excited. One of those tough, gritty games, not a lot of scoring, a lot of defense. How do you feel about that in the city and kind of staking your claim to be the best team in the city?
Yeah, I think that's right. That's always is goal 1 is that you got to win your conference. Yeah. And Leesville and us have had some battles, and to say it's a rivalry would be accurate. That has become a big rivalry within our conference. And as you guys well know, we've got Roseville down the street, Wake Forest down the street. You've got Millbrook down the street. You've got a really a depth of quality here within Wake County, similar to what you've got in the 704. There are teams that are just consistently there, that are playing good football, that are well coached, and are going to put up a dogfight every Friday night. So, it's exciting because I think the reality is 4A football has come down to 3 areas in our state for the most part, right? There's still New Bern, who's going to be outstanding this year. But it's the 919, it's the 704, and it's the greater Greensboro area. That's where 4A football lives, just because those are the major metropolitan areas. And so, and that's no slight to Asheville, because there's some quality teams there as well. But you guys know geographically, basically where these conferences fall and where those quality teams rest. So it's going to be a lot of fun, I think, for everybody. I'm like you, Grace. I'm as excited as ever to get back out there. And I think this state just continues to get deeper and deeper, and the football just keeps getting better and better every year.
All right, guys, again, we're here with Coach Steven Wright of Cardinal Gibbons High School, the first week of the high school football season. Coach Wright, I got a couple more football questions, and then we'll kind of let you get on out of here. First thing, you kind of already touched on it just now with the New Berns of the world and, some of those top teams in the East. But, Richmond County, still Richmond County. I think Pinecrest is going to be one of the emerging teams out of the Eastern North Carolina this year. Rolesville, I think, is going to be better than they've ever been this year. And with that said, you said a few minutes ago something that I just kind of want to take apart and dissect. I feel like you guys now kind of been to 3 straight state championship games. You mentioned some of the young players. This is a new team. This is not last year's team, the year before that. But yet I still feel like Cardinal Gibbons, y'all have a target on your back because of the the success that you guys have built. And of course, success breeds success. But with that said, it's a new team, new members. You might have guys that's been on the team 2 or 3 years, but they may be in different spots or plugged in different places and contributing in different ways. But how do you take this new team and mold them in with the same level of expectations you have against, the Richmonds of the world, the Pinecrest? You got Coach Nick Evans at Pinecrest. They're going to be really good. Rolesville, Coach Shuping elevated up. They're going to be really good. They're going to surprise some people. How do you do that?
Well, I think it's, and I know this sounds cliched, but it's culture, and it's building and reinforcing your culture. And I can tell you, we don't make our culture isn't about winning. Our culture is about developing godly young men. That's our goal. And we feel like if we work hard and we, as coaches and as players, and we put our players in a position to succeed, that those wins will begin to take care of themselves. And I think it's been that long, slow build of a culture that's really helped us sustain the success we've had over the past few years. Remember, this is year 12 for me at Cardinal Gibbons. And unfortunately in our state, and listen, here's another vicious rumor, right? That we're paying our coaches all kinds of money. Here's the reality. All right, I don't get paid six figures. If I want to do that, I probably better move down to South Carolina, right? Our staff is paid on Wake County's pay scale. But the reality is we've been able to build over a long period, and that consistency, that stability, and that reinforcement of our culture is what has helped us, I think, maintain that success, along with an incredible amount of hard work. And so, I think that's the reality of it. It's a lot of hard work, but it's also the consistency of our staff and the time that we've been there, and the kids buy into that. They know what we need to do, and we really kind of hit rinse and repeat in so many ways as we work into a new season.
Well, Coach Steven Wright, I'm going to ask you this, and you kind of segued great into this question. And I hate to ask this question because I know the three of us in this room right now know the answer. It's funny you mentioned that, the pay scale of the coaches and that you guys have an unfair advantage. And of course, we know it's untrue, but, you've got a lot of the people around the state that are watching this program as we speak who think that the non-parochial schools such as yourself, such as Charlotte Catholic, have an unfair advantage. Yet, I listen to you talk and you talk about the build of the program, and it's almost the same as what Mike Brodowitz has done or Jim Moto before him at Charlotte Catholic. It's the same work ethic, process, and just doing the same thing over and over and over again. You look at what they do. They have the most simple offense you'll ever see, yet they run it to perfection. How do you address the rumors that people like to say, Cardinal Gibbons, Charlotte Catholic have such an unfair advantage?
Well, I'll tell you this. We had one Division I scholarship player graduate. One. So, I think one of the first things that people touch on is, they recruit. Well, if I'm recruiting and I've got one Division I scholarship player graduating from my program, I need to be fired because I'm doing a terrible job of recruiting if I'm allowed to do that. And I would say this as well. Are there some advantages that we have? Yes, there are. Are there some advantages that Richmond Senior High School has? Yes, they do. They're a one-county high school, right? And so the public and the private schools both have some built-in advantages that the other doesn't have. But I think the reality is, and the three of us know this, it is time, it is effort, it is work, it is consistency, and it is long, slow, strong builds that maintain success. And you know this, Chris, because you've got a great historical perspective on this. You look at any high school football program within this state that has had sustained success, and there has been one coach there for a long period of time that's put in a ton of work. His kids have bought into a system, and they have delivered. And so, it's funny, like Charlotte Catholic and us, we run two completely different offensive systems, but we've got a similar type of formula in the sense that we've got a coach that's been there for a long time. We've got a staff that stayed intact. We've got a group of kids that work incredibly hard, and we've been able to maintain some consistent success over time. And so, it's, I don't think it's not rocket science, right? I mean, it's high school football, but I think there are some things that you have to have in place to maintain that success. And they aren't things that anybody else can't have. It's just the commitment that you've got from your administration and your coaches and your kids.
I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. And you know, it kind of comes down to, you know, I'm a big NASCAR fan. Everybody has the same car. It's just a matter of what you do with it. And that's the same thing with what you guys do with the talent you have. Every school in North Carolina, even the bad programs, have talent. It's just a matter of the level of commitment and the work that you're willing to do. You know, everybody wants to do good on Friday night with 4,000 fans watching, but the true measure of success is what you're doing 4,000 times in a row with nobody watching.
Absolutely.
So I totally get
exactly
that.
Right.
And one more football question. I know we're running along with you, but I do want to get it in there. I just want to ask you about week 1. I know you guys have Chambers again. You're playing in Rock Hill. What do you think about that matchup?
We're excited. And, you know, listen, Chambers has got as much talent as anybody in the state on the football field. There's no question about that. They've got a quality staff that's in place. You know, it's going to be a dogfight. And, you know, we're excited about it because we know what they bring. And, you know, I think it's an opportunity for us to play a playoff game in week 1. And I think that does nothing but help both programs involved. It's going to be a cool experience for us. I don't think we've ever crossed a state line, and we actually are crossing a state line twice in 2 weeks here to start the season. And, you know, we're looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great experience for everybody.
All right. Outstanding take on that. We appreciate that, Coach. I got 2 questions left. They are not football related. This is just more about you and you know, questions that I always love to ask coaches because I want to kind of peek behind the curtain. I want to find out what makes you tick. I want to find out what makes great coaches tick. Obviously, I know we all know that you've got to have a good presence behind you as a coach. You know, you got to have a strong family. You got to have strong faith. Obviously, we know that that's very important to you. You've got a wife that probably is as important to you and your success as anyone. And, you know, I wanted to ask how you met her because I know that she is the kin to Reverend Billy Graham, and I was just reading about that, and you know, I met her one time and had no idea when you introduced me to her, I believe, and I had no idea, but I just think that that's very fascinating, just in how your faith and how strong your faith and everything and connecting with that and your level of success. How is she so important to you and your program?
Oh, she's everything. Yeah, I mean, the most important relationship in my life is my relationship with Jesus Christ. And the next most important relationship in my life is my wife. And we actually met at a Fellowship of Christian Athletes camp when she actually was a senior in high school. I was a sophomore in college, and I had gotten to know her brother, and we just met in passing. But when I graduated from college, I actually moved out to Dallas, Texas, and she was a junior at Baylor University. And I went down there to watch a football game, and we crossed paths. I was like, I think I'd like to go out on a date with her. So I called her up a week later, and this was pre-cell phones, internet was just being born. But I called her up on a real phone that was a landline, and we talked. I asked if I could take her out to dinner, and the rest is history. 2 years later, we were married. And yeah, I mean, she has been phenomenal as a coach's wife. And as you guys know, I mean, it's long hours in the summer and the fall, and there are family things that you end up missing. But my wife has just been an incredible support. I've got 3 daughters that have grown up in and around high school football. 2 of them have graduated from Cardinal Gibbons. Our third and our last is going to be a sophomore at Cardinal Gibbons. And so they've known nothing but really Cardinal Gibbons high school football. And they've been just an absolute unbelievable support system for me. And my wife has taken the lead on that and cannot thank her enough.
Coach, you know, I've got a bunch of teenage kids in my life, and, you know, I see them on their Snapchat and talking to their significant others and, you know, connecting with other teenagers that way. I know that at least the 2 of us, Bryce, I think that you might be in that boat too. I remember the days where we had to go through the ultimate gatekeeper of calling dad or somebody on the landline and say, hey, can I speak to so-and-so? And most often they were talking on the phone, on the landline in front of their family. So, you know, that really controlled what you could say.
Absolutely. So probably the fastest my heart has beaten over the years is when I called my father-in-law, and I asked if I could take my wife out on a date and begin dating her, I don't know that I've ever been more nervous than when I had to speak on the phone with my father-in-law about dating my wife.
Absolutely. Well, Coach Steven Wright, we got one last question. I love to ask every coach this that we bring on the program because, again, as a former coach and a Grice as a coach, we've got a lot of coaches that love this. And we know that, right now, a lot of the fans that watch this program, they just care about Friday nights. They care about wins. They care about that 90 minutes or 120 minutes they see you on that field on a Friday night. But we all know that, the lives that you touch during practice, the lives that you touch in that classroom and within your program are far more important than, the metrics that we see on the field itself. So, Coach Wright's not going to coach forever. There's going to be a day when you decide that you want to go on and chase some other mission, some other dream, live with your family and move on and let someone else, maybe Coach Drew coach that team one day. But whenever it is that you decide that you want to hang up that whistle, what do you want people to remember about Coach Steven Wright? What's the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Well, I hope the legacy that I leave is that we developed godly young men who are now great husbands, great employees that are feeding back into their community and continuing to do the work that God's called them to do, regardless of what profession they end up choosing. I hope ultimately that's my legacy, because you're right. People are going to forget about records, titles, win-loss, all of that. And I can tell you this, one day I will leave this earth and I will stand face to face before my Creator. And the last thing he's going to ask me about is my win-loss record. And what I hope is he looks at me and says, well done, good and faithful servant. And that I was able to faithfully invest in the lives that he entrusted to me as the head coach at Cardinal Gibbons High School.
Well, Coach Steven Wright, thanks for joining Coach Grice and myself here for this week one edition of Talking Preps Overtime. You were phenomenal. We enjoyed kind of getting some insight into your life and your program, and we hope we can do it again one time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys, for having me on. Thank you for what you do for high school football and high school sports, just in general in this state. And look forward to hopefully seeing you guys again.